Okay.
Welcome, Marty Shenkman, to our Saturday at noon. Marty, I have put everyone to sleep. They're all comatose. Half of them are in the bathroom right now, but
You must have
I
been lecturing, Alan.
and I'm sure we have a very big crowd because you're here and you're a big, big draw. But for
I,
people who
I
don't
have I
know,
have a big pencil. That's why I can draw big.
that's right. That's right.
Quick
But
Draw McGraw. Remember him?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
No one in
But
the audience. They're all too young to know who Quick Draw is.
But for those of us who know who Marty Shenkman is, we're just really, really lucky to have you both as a friend, but in this profession, because you do probably more for our profession and for the people who are helped by our profession than anyone that I know or that I can think of. And first of all, you're really, really smart. That's clear.
If
But
you'd said good looking, you would have gotten a lot more points.
but
Can I
how
just
do
interject? Let me interject a comment because what you said is actually very meaningful to me. When I started in our profession, I was working in the basement of my house. I remember I couldn't afford a copier with a feeder, so I had a copier where I had to stand there and put pages in. I was starting below the bottom, and I remember going to conferences or running into the muckety mucks of the profession and trying to, you know, ask a question or, could I ask you a favor? Could you just give me some guidance on such and such? And I just found a chill. I just didn't find many people willing to lend a hand. And it always bothered me. And I just don't understand that. When you've achieved a certain level of success, play it back. I mean, how hard is it? I get emails from colleagues, young colleagues just asking, like, how do I do this? Or where do I find information on this? Or do you have a thought on this? And I know that the 3 minutes that I spend, could save them days of torture. Like, why wouldn't I do that? So we should all do that. We should all do that. And the other thing that I try to do, and oops, it's American Cancer Society. There's so many great charities and causes out there, and I know you've been like an amazing help to so many, and I try to do it as well. So many charities could use our hand. Even if you're a young, upcoming estate planner, if you can loan a hand to a charity, I mean, it's just it's so easy to have a positive impact. And I just feel the way the world is now, and we're not going to get into that. I mean, uh, any positive vibes any of us can put out there is needed. So please do it, everybody. Okay, back to you.
well,
I've pontificated.
give us a good example of what your involvement with the charity has been, because it's a wonderful example.
Well, I speak for a lot of charities. For reasons I'm always thrilled and mystified by. When I speak, they get large crowds. So if me making the effort to write a speech and present it, helps draw people in for a charitable event, so that a good organization with great, doing great things in the world can get more people to know about them, it's my pleasure. When I do webinars that I host, I try for 100%. I don't get quite there, but I try almost every time to feature a different charity. And I've featured, probably dozens of different charities over the years. And the idea is just to help educate our colleagues about who charities are. I remember a statistic, it was a bit old, but I suspect it stayed true. And don't feel insulted as a lawyer, but 92% of planned gifts, 92%, the donor talks to their accountant before making the gift. I felt kind of bad, like, why don't they talk to me, the lawyer, but they talk to the accountant. But the point is that we as advisors can have an incredible influence on helping encourage and guide people to make charitable gifts. I mean, what a wonderful way to give back while you're just doing your job. And I don't feel it's my right to tell anyone who to give to, but to help show them how they can give, or how they can afford to give more, or how they can give and have Uncle Sam contribute to the cause. It's what we all do. It's a great thing.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, as one of the most productive and technically oriented tax lawyers in the country, I'm really interested in the human aspect of estate planning. So and by the way, you have a really nice library. Don't you have a nice video library that laymen can go to understand the law? Is that Easy
I, I,
Law?
I have two things. There's a consumer-facing website called Law Easy, LAWEASY.com. There's probably about 170 or 80 video clips. Some of the other content I haven't kept quite as current, but there's at least 180 10-minute planning video clips. If you hear from anybody that there's topics they want, I'm going to volunteer to do as many 10-minute video clips on topics people want to hear about with you together and post there. And you can post them to your website too. So that may be helpful. And hopefully as I go on in the future, I will add more to that, because I think, again, it's just part of the giving back. I just want to create resources so consumers can understand some of the complex stuff that we do. My law firm website, it's really a legal education site almost, is called Shenkman Law. And the webinar tab there has probably 150 webinars. Those are mostly, not all, but mostly a little more technical, designed for professional advisors. But a lot of our clients are very smart. I find a lot of clients listen to it, and if they understand half of it, they're way ahead of the curve when they go talk to their advisors, so it helps them. And there's probably 300-400 articles on the blog page there. So there's a lot of material there too, all free. Help yourself. Just don't take legal action without talking to your advisors. Now they know I'm a real lawyer. I put a caveat on it.
Now, Marty, I know that we kind of intended for this program to go about 30, 35 minutes, but if you want, we could go part 1 and part 2. So because I think you should take your time. Don't worry about time. Our audience will wait as long, we'll be here as long as you are. So I'm just really, interested in you taking your time and meandering through what I know is a really important program here.
Just to emphasize what you said, and kudos seriously to you for recognizing that the human aspects of planning is so important. Too often when people go to anyone in any of the allied professions, it's certainly not a criticism of lawyers, anyone in the allied professions, we all tend to focus on technical tax, investment allocations, tax nuances, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And in the end of the day, if we neglect the humans, the people, the souls that are involved, we're not really getting people where they want to be. If you're religious and you want religious considerations addressed because that's just important to you, and your plan violates your fundamental religious precepts, I mean, that's terrible. If you have a child that's LGBTQ and you're not taking the steps necessary to protect the child, what does it matter that you get an extra few dollars potentially going to the child if either it doesn't go or causes harm? There's just so many different things. I know you do an awful lot, and I know you do so much of it. I'm going to ask you a personal question when we're off the air about asset protection. I don't want to delve deeply into it, but I just find, and I don't know if you experience the same thing, that too many clients get tax focused and they forget about asset protection. Or people that are worth less than $1 gazillion feel, oh, that's for the wealthy people, I don't need to worry. But no, you actually need to worry more, because if you lose $1 million in a lawsuit, that may be the difference of your kids going to college or not. And asset protection can be taken down to very modest levels by just getting proper insurance and having that rental property in an LLC. So there's just so many different facets to the non-tax, non-legal aspects of planning that is what makes it robust. It makes it tailored to the individual, and it just works. We're not going to get into financial planning, but I probably have, wild guess, 4 to 5, maybe 6 clients a year that come to me. And after about 15, 20 minutes of looking at their balance sheet and hearing them talk, I say, listen, I can do whatever trust or whatever they came to me for. But if you don't talk to a financial advisor and your accountant and get a budget and get on track, you're going to be eating cat food when you're like 80. You can't live like this. And I'd say half the people are, when they finally get the message are incredibly thankful. Half get angry at me because they came to me because they felt they were so wealthy they needed this fancy trust that they heard about on the golf course, and get upset that I'm suggesting that they may need to take more remedial measures. But boy, what good does a fancy estate plan do if you're going to run out of money? So, and I've just kind of rambled, but the point of the rambling was to illustrate that there's a myriad of different facets of the human aspects of planning, of the non-tax, non-legal, non-asset allocation aspects, the non-technical, that stuff that we all, whether you're an accountant, attorney, wealth advisor, insurance consultant, take a little bit of a step beyond the core of what we all do. There's so much important stuff. And I think the key message, and hopefully the rambling will help that, is clients need to be proactive and assertive. If a client comes into my office or your office and they don't say, my spouse has got some drug addiction issues, right? It's really hard for wealthy people in particular because these are issues that only affect non-wealthy people. It's not true, right? You should see the statistics. I just did an article on mental health and lawyers. The percentage of lawyers that have drinking and drug abuse problems is terrifying, terrifying. So it affects everybody. And if a client can't feel comfortable telling us that, and I'm sure over the years you've seen a lot of different types of addictive behavior, from drugs to alcohol to theft to gambling, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If a client can't feel safe telling us that, we can't take the steps to help them.
Yeah, we and certainly we can learn to be better listeners and people that clients can feel comfortable talking to.
Clients have to feel comfortable talking. And clients, the biggest mistake I find is when a client calls me up and says, I need a Cupid, I need a GRAT, I need a defective grantor idjit or something like that, because they heard from all their friends that they have it or they read something online. You got to start as a client, not with the answer, right? That's like going to the doctor and like the ad on TV, because it's a drug company trying to get you to buy their pill. Go to your doctor and ask for the purple pill. But the same thing is when they come to an attorney and say, I need a GRAT. Well, how do you know you need a GRAT? I don't even know what you need done. How about talk to me and tell me who you are? I mean, yeah, I need to see a balance sheet and, some financial data and some family data, however you define the term family, but talk to me. I remember once a very well-respected wealth advisor was referring a client to me and scheduled a call before the client came in. And she wanted to create a agenda for the meeting. And I listened to her and I said, with all due respect, I don't want to create an agenda. I don't want an agenda. I want the client to come and I want to listen through these. I want to listen to them talk. I want to, and not only do I want to listen to them talk, I want to hear what they don't talk about. I don't want to have an agenda, because if you have an agenda, what's the tendency with the agenda? After you do item 1, you go to item 2, you go to item 3. I want the client to ramble, because in the rambling, and even in the silence between the rambling, you get a sense of things that are important or scary to them. Then we can really help. I'll give you a perfect example, and I'll share something personal. I know you know, but the audience doesn't know. My wife was diagnosed over 15 years ago with multiple sclerosis. Changed everything about our lives. Changed our lives financially, changed her career, ended her career, changed how we travel. It actually put me on a wonderful path, because we squeezed lemonade out of the lemon, where we have a charity and spend 2 months a year on the road, traveling around the country, raising money and awareness for the American Brain Foundation and the American Cancer Society and other wonderful charities, and have a great time doing good. Can't beat it. It's a business deduction, but don't record that part. But I've had clients that have had comparable significant health issues, and they won't tell me. How can I help them? I mean, I can do a little bit, but if I don't know what's going on, what can we really do? If I don't know that you have a special needs child or grandchild, how can I help you address it? I have a special needs grandchild. I understand the pain, but if you don't share that with me, what can I do? I think that clients in part are sometimes uncomfortable sharing because they don't know that we can really help them. And I don't think it's an exaggeration, but for example, with health issues, next to the medical professionals, when I say we, I mean the entire advisory team, accountant, attorney, financial advisor, wealth advisor, trust officer, we can do more to help protect clients with health issues and safeguard them, not just financially, but from a myriad of different things than maybe anybody else in their lives other than the doctors. And sometimes what we do is even as important, depending on the condition and the situation. But I don't think a lot of clients realize that, so they're hesitant. And I think, and it's shame on us as a culture, because I think it's a cultural thing. We make people feel inadequate or uncomfortable sharing these things, and they shouldn't be. They shouldn't be.
Yeah, you're very right. One of my early mentors, a CPA who's now passed away, named Marty Schweitzer, used to have me over for a client meeting, and it would go 2.5, 3.5 hours. He would root out in such a friendly, lovely way their business issues, their tax issues, and the personal issues would come out. And he would just keep talking and letting them talk, and just keep talking and letting them talk, and they would resolve their personal issues just because they had someone to talk to. Which is, you can't do that very easily with a psychiatrist when it's over in 59 minutes and you
40,
don't have a
isn't
meeting
it?
till the 40, and you don't
Yeah.
have another meeting till another. And so often they would remark to him, Marty, I've been in therapy for years and I just never got this far.
Can I add something else that's very important? I never met Marty. I don't know Marty, but Marty had to be a special guy because not everybody has the antenna or the heart, and you need both to do what you just described. But what you just described is what every client should want from their planning. And what you just described is what I would aspire to as an attorney to be able to do for clients. And it's hard. And some clients just don't want to hear what they need to hear. And sometimes when I know there's bad news, like somebody's just out spending their money like crazy, or someone's got a business succession plan that's just never going to work, I will often preface it by saying, listen, I feel there's something that you need to hear, but I don't think you want to hear it. Is it okay if I say it? And I think as an advisor, because I know, I believe you have advisors and, real people on the call. I think as an advisor, if you ask permission to say something that you think is going to be uncomfortable, you shouldn't feel bad saying it because you've just been given permission to say it. And I'll give you an example too. And this is really for the advisors and the flip side of it for the client, real people. When I lecture around the country, I'm planning for clients with chronic illness. One of the things that I encourage advisors to do is to ask clients, tell me about your health challenge. Tell me how it affects your life now and may in the future so I can see how I can help you. Now, if you're doing that and coming from a genuine place, all you're trying to do is help the client, and you're trying to help them really in ways they need. If somebody takes offense to you as an attorney, an accountant, a trust officer, saying from the right place, from a good place, from a caring place, tell me about your health challenges so I can help you. If somebody gets offended about that, you haven't done anything wrong. That's their problem. Don't let it be your problem. You've done the right thing. And I have found over the years, very, very few people, when you do it like that and you come from the right place and you open up a little about yourself so they know you're a real person and a human being and that you have fragility too, I rarely see people get offended. It may be hard for them, but I rarely see people get offended. I have, but it's not that often.
Marty, how is it different in these video calls that we're doing nowadays instead of in person. Because in person, honestly, was easier to establish that rapport.
So, a very interesting question. I would love to see somebody do an analysis where they actually interview 100 clients, meaningful number, maybe 1,000, and interview clients that, let's say half of them met with their advisors, attorney, account, financial planner in person, and half met only through the web, and to see if there's a disconnect that's in greater proportion on the web versus in person. I can tell you that because of my wife's health issues and our traveling, we usually put about 10,000 miles a summer on the summer and spring on the RV, which is a lot. So we've been gone, other than COVID, 2 months a year. I've been working on the road and remotely long before COVID and long before people even heard of Zoom, before Zoom existed. Can you imagine? So I feel comfortable with it. I had always believed until COVID hit that even though I was doing so much remote work and calls and web meetings, I had always believed that it was better in person. But honestly, I'm not finding that to be an issue. I'd love to see a study to see if I'm wrong, but I'm not finding it to be an issue. And let me give you a contrary thought to what, the intuitive thing is, you can read somebody better when they're in front of you, right? But on the other hand, when you're speaking to a client and they're in the comfort of their own home, sitting in their comfortable chair with their, favorite coffee mug, they may be more comfortable sharing than when they're in a law office. And let me jump in and give you another comment too. You're different because you're to a great degree, your firm is kind of an estate business planning boutique. So you're a warmer, and you're just too fuzzy of a guy. But if you go into a lot of law firms and accounting firms, but let's use just law firms as an example, it illustrates the point. And you know exactly, I think, where I'm going, what I'm going to say. Many of the law firms, perhaps most, are um, uh, driven or focused on litigation or corporate, because those tend to be the bigger dollar items. And what happens when you walk into a conference room in a firm that's corporate or litigation focused, the conference rooms are usually really big, really harsh, and really sterile feeling. That's not the environment to get somebody comfortable to talk. My office is decorated to feel like somebody's dining room. I actually have a conference room table that looks like a dining room table. I have upholstered chairs that look like what would be in somebody's dining room. I have artwork on the wall. I don't have anything made out of chrome and glass and metal to intimidate you. It's not all black to intimidate you. It's soft tones of green and beige and brown. It's comfortable. So, when you talk about in-person meetings, I'd like to know who's doing the meeting. I'd like to know what kind of environment the office is. I think you need to sort of, address people being comfortable in their home. When you're talking about really tough issues that, your child struggling with, their sexual identity, with a child, a spouse, a loved one, however you define it, struggling with drug addiction issues, and you don't want to even acknowledge that they have it to yourself, yet alone to a lawyer. I mean, these are hard conversations. Telling somebody, listen, I know you enjoy going on 3-4 cruises a year for 40 grand a pop because you like the penthouse, but you're going to run out of money just on simple math. I always do if I told you about the 30-second Marty Shenkman estate financial plan.
Yes, and please tell the audience.
So I don't want to do a financial analysis. I probably could. Alan probably does. But I'd rather send you back to your financial advisor, your wealth advisor, your accountant to do it. It's just not what I do best, and I don't want to do it. But what I do for a lot of clients, especially when it becomes obvious just looking at their balance sheet, they got an issue, is I'll take and add up all the financial resources on their balance sheet. Because a lot of the people that we're talking to are retired and they're living on their financial resources. I leave out the houses, and sometimes there's many of them, and the boats and the big boy toys, big girl toys, and just add up the financial resources. I used to multiply it by 4%, but that's probably a little pushy now. Maybe better at 3.5%. And if they have $10 million invested, I may say, hey, can you guys live on 350 grand a year? And if the first reaction is one of the couple, if it's a couple, laughing, if they're laughing, is that the first reaction? They got a problem. And that happens. It happens. And when I say, listen, you're not going to make it. You need to do a budget. You need to have a financial advisor do Monte Carlo simulation and project out, unless there's health issues in your family. I think at this stage, Alan, what do you say, age 95 at minimum, if not 100? I mean, I think you have to go that far. When I see financial advisors, do something to like age 82, I know they're trying to make the client feel good. It's just not reasonable. You got to go out, unless there's a really significant known health issue, to 95 or 100. And honestly, I'm starting to see people go beyond 100 to like 110. But at least go to 95 or 100. And you want to have, I would think, 60, 70% minimum likelihood under all the different scenarios of not running out of money before age 95 or 100. And if you're below that, you got to change things. And if you're at 70% likelihood based on this analysis of like 10,000 random number simulations of investment performance and so on and so forth, you better redo the numbers every year and try to keep pushing it back up a little, because if you start to get below that, you're going to start to worry. A 30% chance potential, and it's not quite probability, I don't know if that's the right term to use, but if you have 30% likelihood of running out of money before you die, that's kind of scary. I don't think I'd love that. Did I ever tell you my sailboat example? The financial planning? Oh, I've hidden things from you. So financial planning is like a sailboat. Did you know that, Alan? Have you ever sailed a boat? You ever done a sailboat? What happens when you sail into the wind? You don't go anywhere. The sail flaps a little. You tack back and forth. And that's what financial planning's got to be. You can't live on it's like living on a diet. You have X calories a day. Leave me alone. I can't do that. But if I actually had something that I celebrated with my wife last night, and I dug out a good bottle of wine, and my darling wife did something devious and found a box of like crazy good frozen cookies that we took out. Now, mind you, I've been on a ketogenic diet for 3 years. I can't remember the last time I had a piece of cake or a cookie. We went nuts. It was good. But that's okay, right? Because now back the other direction. Financial planning is the same thing. You have a kid's wedding, you go on a big trip, that's fine. You can't torture yourself. But if you go off this direction, next time you got to go off more that way to balance it out. But when you look at the gross overall numbers, if you don't have a good likelihood of surviving financially past age 95 or 100, you got to address it. And the problem becomes, if you get worse and worse and worse, and you don't address it, the adjustments become greater and greater. So if at age 65, when you retire, you don't look to quite be on track, and you tighten your belt loop one notch, you're not going to be happy. But if you do nothing in 10 years, you may have to tighten 3 notches. And I've heard it said, I don't remember who said it, but it's a very insightful comment. There are very few things in life harder than reducing your lifestyle expenses. It's very hard to do.
Absolutely. If you can,
everything we've been talking about, to me, is part of the human, non-legal, non-tax aspects of planning. And not for everybody, but I would say for the majority of people, this is the heart and the foundation of planning. And unless you understand this, the fanciest trust, the most complex, note sale transaction, the most esoteric asset allocation with, an allocation now to, Bitcoin and private equity, whatever it is you're doing, if you don't start with this stuff, the human stuff, the addiction issues, the personal issues, the religious issues, lifestyle issues, financial issues, if you don't build the foundation, the rest can never be great.
Absolutely.
I know this was kind of vague, but for people that haven't thought about it, I think it's very helpful. I wish all my clients would listen to something like this before they come in, so they would know to feel comfortable talking, so they know that the more they share, the more I can help them.